Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at the all grade one pick four sequence. $1 million guaranteed on Travers Saturday up at Saratoga Race Course. Races 8 through 11. Scheduled post time for race number 8. The first leg, the kickoff leg of this late pick four sequence, or I should say the $1 million guaranteed pick four sequence, is 3:35 Eastern. It starts off with the grade one ballerina. I'm going to be totally up front before we even start this thing. I'm throwing out a number of favorites in this sequence just because I kind of look at it and say, these guaranteed pools, they're awesome, they're great, but occasionally they can underpay unless you can get creative and try to throw out some of the logical horses. I'm going to do that right away here in the first leg, the ballerina. You've got all the expanded stakes previews over on video.drf.com, as well as the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. I'm throwing out two big horses in here. Finley's Lucky Charm, Lewis Bay. Likely to be the two top choices in here, or pretty darn close to it. Recognize that they can easily win this race. If they win, I lose. I'm going 4 deep, 2 A's, a B, and a C. My 2 A's, the number 3 still there, the horse that I like, my actual pick in this race. She's 12-1 on the morning line. Don't know that she actually goes off at 12, but maybe in the pick 4 sequence, maybe she plays pretty darn close to that. Thought she was awesome winning the Twix for Dane Kabisky most recently, and it feels like she is that kind of horse. You got to make a call. You either don't think she's classy enough, or you think she's going to be able to handle it, and what she's done thus far on the main track, 3 for 3, perfect record, and her buyers and figs, they're pretty darn close already. I'm making the call saying I think she fits in here. I'm also going to use the 7. That's Marley's Freedom coming in for Baffert and Mike Smith on the West Coast. I just think in many ways she's probably the horse to beat in here ahead of those other two that I'm going to try to beat, simply because I think the West Coast is generally better as far as the main track horses are concerned. And that Great Lady M, I understand that the race come back a little bit on the weak side, but I think this is a nice spot for her, and I think it's a good opportunity to get a grade 1. Those are my 2 A's in this spot. My B is going to be the number 2 Ivy Bell for Pletcher and Javier. Turning back in distance, she's never been out of the exacta in 4 lifetime starts at 7/8 of a mile. Admittedly, a little bit concerned about how fast she is. I don't know that she is currently good enough to win a race like this, but I think the distance works for her, and I think she's going to get a decent enough setup in here. She's my lone B, and I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer in here with the number 8 horse Union Strike as my only C in here. First time, Steve Asmussen. If you really just want to go back and break it down, the last time she sprinted on a fast main track was early on as a 3-year-old back in April last year in the Santa Paula. And guess what? She earned a 90 buyer as an early 3-year-old. If this is what she wants, which I believe it is, and this is what she's wanted all along, and she's ready to go, she's going to be very, very interesting. She's 15-1 on the morning line. She's my lone C in the opener of this entire sequence. Let's move on to leg 2, leg B, however you'd like to say it. The 9th race of the day. It's the grade 1 Forgo. I'm using 3 A's, and that's all I'm using. The 5, the 6, and the 8. The 5 is my pick in the race. No dozing for Arnaud Delacour, and you got Joel Rosario retaining the mount. Second off of a long layoff. He had been gelded prior to that layoff. He'd been gone since the end or the middle of November last year. Took some time, gelded him, thought he came back and ran a bang-up race. That race has thus far come back productive, albeit a little bit slow as far as the figs are concerned about what's capable of winning in a spot like this. But 12-1 in the morning line, I think he has a big chance. The number 6, CZ Rocket for Al Stahl, most recently co-highest last out buyer in the field with a 103 in that Kelly's Landing. Thought he looked tremendous in there, was never ever a loser. Going to be facing better horses this time around, but again, Al Stahl, you always have to respect him when he ships in for the big money. And the last one I'll use is the most likely winner of the race, and he's going to be the favorite, I would imagine. That's the outside runner, City of Light for Michael McCarthy. This is a nice horse, really has done nothing wrong in his career, never been out of the money in 8 lifetime starts, and as far as this distance is concerned, never been out of the exacta. He's 2 for 3, and he's a grade 1 winner at 7/8 of a mile off of a layoff. That's what you're going to get here with this horse. 5, 6, and 8 for me, only A's in the Forgo, race number 9. The third leg of this $1 million guaranteed pick 4 sequence is the grade 1 Sword Dancer. 1.5 miles on the inner turf course, very similar to the Forgo for me. 3 horses, all of them A's. Want to use them in equal weight. The 2, Spring Quality. I think there's a scenario where he might actually be the best horse in the race for Graham Motion. He missed that Arlington Million with he didn't ship very well. He had a little bit of dehydration, had a little bit of an issue passing stool. Now, all of a sudden, sounds like he's good. And he rebounded quite quickly out of that. I believe he trained, or worked anyway, the next morning. Seems like everything is fine to go. 1.5 miles, I don't think it's going to be a problem for him. That Manhattan that he won, that's become a productive race. We saw Robert Bruce come back and win the Arlington Million. This horse has done nothing wrong since they've transitioned him to the turf. I think he's a major player in a spot like this. I've always been a fan of Highland Sky. I don't think he appreciated the soft going in the Bowling Green. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he'll run closer to that effort 2 starts back on June the 24th at Belmont Park, recognizing that it was against inferior company as opposed to what he's going to face here on Saturday. But the firm going, the 103 buyer that he earned, that fits in there beautifully. The distance isn't going to be a problem for him, and he's going to be a big price. He might be every bit of the 15-1 morning line. Need to have him as an A, and I'm going to use one of the more logical contenders in here, the far outside horse, the number 10 Sadler's Joy. Look, he's rock solid. He just shows up. You kind of know what you're going to get. Probably 102 to a 105 buyer speed figure. If the ride is timed perfectly, he's going to be right there at the wire. We'll find out. Javier and he still need to work some things out. I thought Julian Leparoux fit this horse like a glove. Javier, the good news is he's as good as anyone in the world, so he'll adapt and figure things out. Those are going to be the 3 A horses for me in the Sword Dancer, the 2, the 5, and the 10. If I'm alive, fingers crossed, hopefully, we're going to get to the Grade 1 Travers. The main event of the entire Saratoga meeting, the Midsummer Derby, 1.25 miles on the main track, 3-year-olds. It's the DRF Bets race today. You can find Illman and Beer's analysis over on video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. It's also one of the main pieces of this week's edition of Out of the Gate. This is a spot. I'm only going to use 3 horses. I'm throwing Good Magic out all together. He could easily win this race. I think he's better at 1.125 miles as opposed to 1.25 miles, and I don't know that he's taken a step forward from his 2-year-old campaign to his 3-year-old. He is rock solid. You know what you're going to get. Probably going to get a 98 or a 99 buyer. Maybe he can scratch 100. If he does that, he's probably close, but I don't know if it's good enough to win. We'll find out. I'm throwing him out entirely. So really, the bookends, those are the races for me. I'm pitching the favorites all together, and I want to try to take some shots against. I have 1 A horse in here, and that's the horse that I'm picking in the race, obviously, the number 11 Catholic Boy. I'm not totally convinced that Catholic Boy is not better on the dirt than he is on the turf. He has some good early positional speed. I think the outside draw is beneficial for him. 1.25 miles is not a problem, and he's 8-1 in the morning line. I don't think he's going to be 8. I think he probably goes off in that 5 or 6-1 range, but maybe he plays every bit of it in the pick. He's my lone A in this spot. If I get through and let's say Union Strike wins that opener and I can get through the other 2 legs, I'll be fine and content rolling the dice here with Catholic Boy in the pick 4. A couple of B's in here for me, the 3 and the 8. The 3 horses, Gronkowski, I think really in many ways you could look at him and say he's one of the more likely winners of this race. If you think he takes a step forward from that Belmont Stakes effort, and keep in mind that was his first start since March, first start with Chad Brown. Chad had only had him for a few weeks. He missed a little bit of training after that, but it sounds like he's coming into it in great form. Chad seems to be very, very pleased with the way that he's going forward. I think he's a giant player. The only concern is how far back is he going to be? I need him to stay within shouting distance to the front end and not be so far back as he was in the Belmont Stakes. I think he's a major player. He's a B. And the other B is one of my favorites. Maybe Mendelssohn is not good enough. But I think perhaps you can make excuses for each of the past 2. You certainly can make an excuse for the Kentucky Derby. That's been well documented. He got sideswiped out of the gate. The wet track, he didn't appreciate it. The Dwyer, I was disappointed in the effort, but if you really genuinely believe it was nothing more than we need to get a race into him, because if you think the Derby didn't really do much for him, he wouldn't have had a race since March. Okay, he showed some speed. He faded. It is what it is. Now you get out to 1.25 miles on a fast main track at Saratoga on Saturday afternoon. Again, maybe he's not good enough, but I want to have him on my tickets. He is a B. So you can play this in a few different ways. You can hammer the all A's. Obviously, with a C, you kind of know you want to tread lightly because there's a reason that the ticket is including a C. That's how I'm approaching the sequence. Maybe we'll see. Maybe some things will change. Have to take a look at the DRF Clocker report. You'll find that. That'll come out sometime Friday evening. And then also you're going to have to take a look at scratches and changes coming up on Saturday morning. It's a great day of racing. It's the marquee event for the entire Saratoga meeting. The Travers, the Midsummer Derby, the 3-year-olds going 1.25 miles. It is the payoff leg of a $1 million guaranteed pick 4 sequence, races 8 through 11. They're all grade 1s. The Ballerina, the Forgo, the Sword Dancer, and the Travers. Scheduled post time for the first leg of this $1 million guaranteed pick 4 sequence, which you can play on DRF Bets. It's 3:35 Eastern. Good luck.